This is the How to Succeed podcast, the show that helps you get to the top and stay there. And this is How to Succeed at Modern Sales Coaching. I'm your host, Mike Montague, Director of Community Engagement at Sandler. And we have two longtime Sandler alums, Colum Lundt and Mike Myers, joining us to talk about coaching because they have a new app and a new partnership with Sandler as well at Coach 'em. We're going to find out all about that next. But don't forget, Sandler is the worldwide leader in sales management and customer service training with over 200 locations. Find more information about Sandler at sandler.com. And the podcast is copyrighted by U.S. copyright laws. All right, here we go. How to Succeed at Modern Sales Coaching with Colum Lundt and Mike Myers from Coach 'em. All right, Colum, I'll give you first crack at it. Tell us what's going on in the world of modern sales coaching. We know with AI and data and all kinds of remote work, there's been a lot of disruption over the last, 3 or 4 years. Where do you think the state of sales coaching is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that the modern version of coaching has to account for remote workforce. So that's a big change over the last several years. And while you have new managers being promoted, they're dealing with folks they can't really see day in and day out, they can't overhear day in and day out without a lot of work. So the modern coach leverages technology and data to figure out exactly where to coach, to diagnose root cause, and then to individualize or personalize that coaching for their rep. It's really moved beyond deal coaching, which is de rigueur in the modern, most sales organizations, I should say. But the modern sales coach thinks about things more holistically when it comes to the behavior, the attitude, and the technique.
Mike, I'll give you a first crack at this one too, because I kind of think of just a regular coach analogy anytime I think about this one. Like a baseball coach in the major leagues job is significantly different than it was 25 years ago.
Sure.
They're not just doing it by feel and guts and trying to see who's got the hot hand this day. Like they have stats on spin rate of the ball and bat speed and all kinds of other measurements of health and fitness and everything else. What's your take on this? What does a modern sales coach day look like, or how is it different than it was 5 years ago?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question. And I feel like, again, being in the business for over 25 years and working with many companies, I think the thing I see is that, managers' guts are pretty good, right? And so their wisdom and experience they bring to the table. But just like baseball, and now there's with the technology and the ability to leverage individual data and individual reps, and really look at when we look at underlying causes versus symptoms. So I think in terms of modern sales coaching, if someone, for example, if their pipeline or their sales cycle is getting longer, there could be 5, 6, 7, 8 different reasons why that happens. So our goal really is to help them leveraging data, look at the individual reps data, and then work on the underlying cause, not just a symptom. So it could be, not getting the right decision makers, not finding compelling reasons to buy. So our ability to use an application like Coach 'em is to give the manager confidence to work on the right areas.
And Colum, I want to talk about that first as we go into the attitude bucket. What's the ideal attitude of a manager using this data? Because I think every sales rep is afraid, like, oh, they're just going to try and catch me doing something wrong so that they fire me. But most sales reps and owners like yourself know that, like, no, you want people to succeed. You're not trying to fire people. That's expensive. That's the worst outcome possible for employees. But I think sometimes people still see it that way, or they default to the stereotype of, I'm going to listen to these calls, or I'm going to get this data to catch who's not performing. And while that might be part of it, that's not what you're hoping for. Can you tell me about the ideal attitude?
Sure. And I think obviously we want to screen for coachability, in the hiring process. But let's assume that you hire a rep or a customer success manager who is coachable. The real question is, what do they want their one-on-one time to be about? Do they want it to be, very deal focused? So what, a manager interrogating them about, hey, what's going on with this deal or that deal? Do they want to be very fluffy? How was the week in general? Or do they want specific feedback? And our bet is that reps, and the data shows this, they want specific feedback. In particular, in today's generation, what they really want is help getting to the next rung in the career ladder. So I think generally speaking, most people are open to coaching and open to precise coaching, and they're comfortable with the fact that all their calls are being recorded anyway. So it's not like, this is all of a sudden Big Brother. It's just now we're leveraging the massive amount of data from their tech stack to help be more precise and to guide the manager through that coaching endeavor.
And Mike, I see you as the tactical guy here because you've had so many of these conversations over the last 25, 30 years. But how does the manager or maybe an owner set this up? How do we set the upfront contracts and the discussion to make sure these are valuable coaching sessions, or that a tool like Coachum is being used the right way and seen as an asset, not something that is spying on them?
Yeah, great question, Mike. In terms of the ability to have that mindset shift, like what is a one-on-one coaching? The attitude, the mindset shift from not only from the manager, but for the rep to realize that this is about, working again, overall holistically on the skills, not just like, hey, how do I get this deal over the line? Because again, we're going to teach them the fish as opposed to fish for them. And if you think a lot of managers are like the super closer, or they're going to, they're involved in every deal. And so our goal really is really to help develop and build their skills and grow as a professional. And we know based on our experience, if you think over the last 5 years, if you look at the millennials and they're really focused on not just about, the money piece, it's really about that personal growth and development. So the skills development area is critically important, and seeing that mindset shift from an attitude perspective for both a manager and for a rep. What is a coaching session all about? What's that one-on-one all about? The one-on-one can be just gathering data. Like you could have a stuffed animal in the chair as a salesperson if it's just about gathering information and about deals. But this is really about holistically working with them, understanding where they are, where the gaps are, and then helping them grow as a sales professional.
I think that's a big thing I want to hit and highlight, and I'll give you another shot at it too, Colum, is most sales managers' jobs are firefighting, right? If they're just working on deals, it's like, what happened this week? What's going wrong? How can I fix that? Rather than proactive coaching on skill development, so you don't have as many fires, right? That's a big mindset shift for sales coaching. Anything else you put into the attitude bucket that you've seen as a common myth or misconception or best practice, Colum?
I think from the attitude perspective, maybe the best analogy is this. If you think about yourself as a golf pro, are you going to get more mileage out of helping to try to change the person's swing, like while they're playing a round of golf? Or would it be better to sort of leverage, 3 months of film and work with them on the driving range? And what we do is basically help the manager by saying, your rep is struggling with whatever, their pitching wedge. So at the driving range, have them take the pitching wedge out. And here's a bunch of drills that you can leverage because this person in particular is struggling from an outside in swing. So, by way of analogy, I think it's really shifting the mindset from immediate coaching, which is very, first of all, we have to do it. I'm not saying you don't, but I think anyone in sales understands that you can have a rep come to the table on a particular deal, missing a key piece of information. Your coaching can help them immediately get that piece of information to make the deal more winnable. But the fundamental question is, do you want to help them avoid getting that far down the pipe with a deal, missing that key information in the first place? So really it's appealing to that more long-term approach to skills development.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think you hit on another attitude for me there, which is that we're going back and forth. We have a lot of different things that we could do. We need long-term stuff. We need short-term stuff. We're getting a lot of data, but we're not necessarily using it in the right way if we don't believe that people can be coachable and can change. So you hit one of the common myths that I hear a lot is that we just need to hire better. These people aren't selling. We need to hire better people that sell. I think you have to believe that they can get better and that these are all soft skills that you can train just like a golf swing, right? That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a interesting, this may seem blasphemous on this podcast, but the one of the gentlemen who wrote the Challenger book prior to that did a ton of research. Brent Adamson did a ton of research at the Sales Executive Council. And what they found out, Mike, is that when you coach your reps consistently, what happens is you wind up retaining your A players. Your A players are not going to get that much more productive because they're already good. But they tend to stick around when they're coached. That's what the data shows. The movable middle, that 60%, they can get anywhere from 17 to 40% better. Can you imagine? I mean, if you looked at like 60% of your sales force and said, could we get them 17% more productive? Could we get 17% more revenue out of them? That's huge. And then obviously with the C players, or the players who are operating as, at the C level, we'll say, you can quickly determine, can they be moved up or out? And so that's really what this boils down to. The data is clear. If you actually put the time in to coach consistently in the right way, there's massive gains. But it's definitely difficult when managers are under pressure from above to just produce deals. And as Mike pointed out earlier, they tend to snap back to their comfort zone, which is closing deals and being that super rep.
So, Mike, as we move to the behavior bucket here, again, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm already on the side. We're preaching the choir. But I hear the first thing kind of being like, this does sound like a lot of time. There are different behaviors or a different week-to-week thing. If I'm individually coaching rep, I'm hearing in my head a lot of sales managers saying, I'm busy. That's great. But, I still have to hit the numbers too. Or how do I balance this? Can you tell me a little bit about what maybe an ideal behavior or coaching cadence would look like?
Sure. Like, again, that's one thing we thought a lot about when we started to coach them is like managers having one-on-ones every week anyway with their reps. And we're really focusing on taking the guesswork and prep work out for the manager. I mean, one thing we can talk about is frontline managers are time starved, right? They never have enough time. So what coaching is going to do is going to serve up, okay, here's the area of concern. Maybe they need to work on getting bigger deals based on looking at the rest of their top 10% of their peers, right? So and then it says based on, your deal, size of your deals is going down. Now let's say, okay, what are the areas in terms of symptoms for that? Why do you think that's happening? Is it about discounting? Is it about, that behavior? Or is it about their inability to kind of find real pain and really build that value proposition? So we're going to serve that up to the manager along with the underlying causes. Here are some really targeted recommendations, like, really do a good job getting through the entire pain funnel, work with that on the rep. Or it could be, you need to actually focus on, the investment piece of it earlier in the process to make sure you include more of the products and services. So we're going to actually help the manager make them much more efficient so they don't have to go do all that work themselves. Because you can imagine if every rep, they had to go and look at the conversational intelligence platforms and look at the CRM, different areas, it would take them a lot of time and effort for serving it up, the symptom, underlying cause, and the recommendations. We're going to really save them time as a part of that process.
And Colum, I wanted to give you a shot at behavior here too. The thing that comes to mind that I heard, Mike, there is we see a lot with, we'll just say untrained sales managers. Nobody listening to this podcast, but an untrained sales manager says, like, did you sell anything this week? And like, what are the problems? And they go, well, you just need to go be more aggressive. You need to have more guts or grit or something. And you need to have more perseverance. And they don't tell them how to do that, right? And then they just go, okay, well, I guess I'll just go try the same thing I did last week, but harder. And it doesn't really make any movement, right? How are these specific recommendations and these specific behavioral coaching different than that?
The way most people do it, Mike, it's not different. But you're absolutely right. We joke about this all the time. Most of us who have played sports have had that coach at some point in their career that said, guys, we need more goals. We need more shots on goal. And the kids are looking at their coach and saying, like, no kidding. But what you really need is a coach that says, okay, team, listen, we've analyzed the data. The reason why we're not getting shots on goal is because 72% of the game we're in our half of the field or the pitch if you're in Europe. And the reason why we're on our half, 72% of the game is because the other team has possession of the ball 68%. And so when we analyze that final why, to Mike's point about root cause, it's because we're turning over the ball when we pass. So that's the only thing we're going to work on. We're going to work on the fundamentals. So from a behavior perspective, you don't need coach them to do this. The manager can go through and analyze the data to sort of triage where they need to focus in the sales process for that individual rep. Then they can kind of comb through the transcripts and listen to calls to pinpoint why that's happening. And then assuming they know how to remedy that, they would then give a prescription to solve that root cause issue. And then the final piece is holding people accountable. We think all of that is very difficult for the managers to do, as Mike said, because they're time starved. So that's what we're helping them take away, is all that investigative work and having the know-how of the best prescription to solve the root cause problem. But behavior-wise, they can do this. And even if they don't do that, if they can literally just stay consistent with their one-on-ones and try to figure out a skill that rep needs to work on week over week, as opposed to just making it a fluffy discussion or about deals, they'll be a lot further along than most people in their position.
Can we get a little bit more specific? I'll give you the first shot at it, Colum, on the behavior cadence here. Like, are we talking about the weekly 30-minute coaching session? Is it, I imagine we want feedback as close to after the deal as possible, just while it's fresh, that person can do it, or before the next call happens, so that it's fresh on their mind and stuff too. What does it look like in an ideal world? How often, when, what's the plan of attack here?
Sure. First is your cookbook as a manager, right? So what percentage of your week are you going to spend actively coaching one-on-one with your reps? And as we all know, there's different types of coaching, right? There's deal debriefing. You can kind of talk to someone, or call debriefing right after a call. There's going through the forecast, and really understanding where the deals are at. And then there's this sort of skills piece of it. So we think that a manager's time should be at least 50% spent on that, which means they may have to go to their boss to clear some of the administrative BS off their calendar. And then they have to keep that time sacred with their rep. The one-on-one is literally about helping to unearth and discuss where they're struggling, and then put a plan in place to help them fix it. They may not have time to do a role play, for example, if it's a half an hour one-on-one, but that one-on-one is the time to schedule an additional half an hour with that rep so they can do a role play. And again, imagine everyone's working remotely these days, or the majority. They're going to have to be more intentional in doing this. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I love that. Mike, anything else you'd add in the behavior bucket before we move on?
No, I think the only thing is that we want to understand that working on underlying behavior, number one, and then at least to performance, and then to the results, right? So we're trying to get to the underlying behavior change, right? For example, in Sandler, doing the upfront contract and getting a clear future at the end is going to make us shorten the sales cycle. So if we work on the underlying behavior, that's going to have a direct impact on it down the road in terms of performance and then ultimate results, to Colum's point.
Now, in the technique bucket, I'll give you free permission here for the shameless plug. Obviously, one of the tools that we could use is coach them. But when we think about how to do that, how does coach them help? How does it work? And how do we have these coaching conversations? Mike, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think for me, it's in terms of technique, the how's, what we do and then how we do it. And Sandler's perfect for that. So the goal from a coaching perspective is sometimes it's about their effort, right? Their mindset, their beliefs. And then the other part is their effectiveness. So we have to look at both ends, right? first of all, do they have the right mindset and belief system around prospecting and what we're trying to ask them to do? And if that's there, then we say, if they're not getting the results, how do we make it, how do we help them do it more effectively? That's when the Sandler tactics and techniques come into play. Do they have to do a better job reversing or asking deeper questions and driving down the funnel? Those are all the how that can work on the right end of the problem, right? It's a part of that process.
And Colum, any favorite tips, tactics, or strategies with or without coaching?
I think, without coach them, I think once you've diagnosed the root cause, let's pretend they're not getting a decision maker. The next question is, how do I help this particular person based on what Mike said? Like, do I have enough information to figure out, is this an effort issue or is it an effectiveness issue? Mm-hmm. And how do I tackle it based on that final diagnosis? And if it's, let's say it's an effectiveness issue, like they believe they need to get to the decision maker. They don't have that head trash around, I'm going to tick off my contact if I ask to go around them. Let's pretend they get over all that. It's about a manager literally rolling up their sleeves and role playing. So from a technique perspective, there's one thing that I recommend managers do. It's build a culture of role play. It's not going to be as, it's not going to be the same as live, but it's close to it. And if you think about any other sport, if you, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example, like you're going to learn a technique, right? And then you're going to drill it. That's like role playing. When you go live, that you're struggling to remember what that technique is that you learned, that you drilled. But the more you drill it, the less the gap is to real world scenario. So I think from a manager perspective, the best tool we have is role play. So I think, that's a one technique I would suggest people employ. And we bake, that's part of our recommendation. So the way our system works is once it figures out for that individual rep where they're struggling and why, we serve up for the manager 12 or 15 recommended actions with the data scientists on our team called learning interventions. And it could be, hey, recommend you role play, recommend you have your rep Mike, sit with Dave because we can see data wise, he's the best at that thing. Recommend you listen to this call. Recommend you take this little Sandler micro learning lesson on how to, get to the decision maker, right? So that's kind of how we work. But again, absent our technology, role play is the best thing that a manager can do.
Then tell me about the technology. So how does it work? How are you getting the data? How are you making the recommendations? And how does a manager or rep use this to make more sales?
Sure. So our ideal client profile are companies with 50 or more sales reps who have Salesforce or HubSpot and some type of call intelligence tool. Call intelligence allows us to get the ground truth. We know exactly what's happening on the calls. Again, saving that manager time from having to listen to tons of them or read tons of transcripts. So we pull data in from the data sources in their tech stack and their sales tech stack. CRM, conversational intelligence, sales engagement tools, calendar, and crunch it all. We use something called causal AI, Mike, which is different than what everyone's hearing about. Everyone's hearing about generative AI these days. We're using a very advanced form of AI called causal AI. We just happen to luck out with a team that had done this for the DoD with the Top Gun program. They basically were able to analyze everything that the Top Gun pilots were doing and then use that to help train the other pilots. So the goal was, let's get all our pilots to fly like our Top Gun pilots. Same thing in sales, right? We want all our salespeople to sell like our Top Gun salespeople. So that's what this does, is it crunches all that. It uses this causal AI, cause and effect form of AI to pattern mine. And then that's where we are able to surface up where the rep is struggling, why, and then pipe in the recommendations. And then over time, the machine learning part of this serves up those recommendations which are most efficacious. So let's pretend it's a Sandler micro learning, right? Given the audience here, let's pretend there's that Sandler micro learning seems to always appear in the reps who improve the most in their behavior. well, then we want to surface that. We want to bubble that up to the top of the recommendation list. So over time, it's getting smarter and smarter. And Mike and I and the team have poured our effort into the system, but that's where the machine comes in. It sort of takes over and determines if we were right, or if there's something better that the data shows can help move the needle.
I love that. That micro-learning probably features either a really good podcast or a really good-looking host or expert in the Sandler micro.
Absolutely.
Most effective ones. Mike, final thoughts from you. Anything that I missed, I should have asked about Coachum, or your favorite part of the whole process?
No, our favorite part of the whole process is really giving managers the tools to leverage, the data and the individual reps, and giving them confidence in that what they really need to work on. It's like that doctor-patient analogy, to give you another one, right? If you go to the doctor, if you do the blood work before you get there, if you do some x-rays, and then again, the doctor is going to make a much better diagnosis if he has that information. So really be laser focused on, where we need to work, and then incrementally seeing that improvement through the causal AI, because it's going to give us ability to say, all right, we hadn't changed this behavior. How did it impact results? And then we can go back, and then over time, the machine gets smarter to recommend the right recommendations based on the organization and the individuals to be successful. At the end of the day, it's all about the frontline managers and their ability to actually raise the skills of their people. That's going to be the key.
Colum, any other final thoughts?
No, I think Mike nailed it. The frontline manager is the key change agent in an organization. And after all the years of training and consulting, what we realized is, as we looked at the companies that were most effective, yes, they invested in training. Yes, they invested in technology, but it was those companies that invested in their manager, who are really the ones that have to pull everything through, right? Day in and day out. It was those companies that saw the greatest increase in performance. And so we really our mission is to help those frontline managers be successful. High tide will raise all ships. If you get the managers operating at peak performance, their reps will operate at much higher levels. And then the company winds up with more deals, bigger deals, faster deals, and loyal customers.
Yeah, I love that. I think what I've seen at Sandler in my time is that it's really overlooked that if you want a better team, the easiest way to do that is to get a better manager, whether that's hiring a better manager or improving the manager's skills to be a better manager. And we see that throughout sports and everything too. I know we love our sports analogies, but I live in Kansas, and the KU football team was dead last. They won less than 4 games in 4 years previous to hiring the coach. Within 18 months, they won their first 4 games of the season, and the first one in the Big 12. And it's like, okay, well, they didn't magically get new players. They didn't redo the whole program, facilities, and all of the other tactics and stuff. They got a better leader. And that's the easiest way to make performance improvement in the team. So hopefully Sandler and Coachum can help you do that. If you want more information, you can reach out to your Sandler coach or go to Sandler.com. We have an enterprise team, and you can reach out to Colum and Mike on LinkedIn and stuff as well, or go to Coachum. But if you have more than one location, if you got a big team, go click on the enterprise tab and reach out to our team. We'll get a conversation started. Now, we got a couple of minutes left. I wanted to get a couple of thoughts from you here. Mike, I'll let you go first. How do you define success at this point in your career? You've been doing this successfully for years now.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Sorry to interrupt. I think for me, defining success is, I always been fortunate, loved what I do. And part of the reason I loved what I do is had the ability to kind of make an impact. I feel like from a Sandler training perspective and from a coaching perspective, is that if you can help people, raise their skills, get better, help them to fish more effectively, it impacts their entire life. And so I feel like in their both professional career and their personal career. So, for me, success is really about, is really, giving back to others and then seeing them grow. Zig Ziglar a long time ago said, you'll get what you want if you help other people get what they want. And I think that's what I really enjoy about the work that I do, and have done it from both the training and then from a coaching perspective as well.
Colum, how about you?
That's hard to argue with. I've heard successes through the agency of others, and I totally agree with that. I think our mission is really about helping these managers get the help they need to realize the full potential of their people, and we think they've just been ignored for many years. And so I'm one who really feels for those people who have been promoted. They were great at what they do, and all of a sudden they're promoted to this role, and they're given no training and there's no technology purpose built for them until now. So to Mike's point, we really want to help them operate at peak performance to find greater fulfillment in their role. And they will in turn, do that for the people underneath them. So, obviously you build something great. We're having a lot of fun. The culture of Coachum, the people we work with, the mission, it all kind of combines to give us all a psychic income. And that's where we're getting a lot of fulfillment these days.
And Colum, back to you. Last question is, do you have a favorite Sandler rule and why?
Gosh, there's a lot of them I like, but I'm not sure the number, Mike, but the one that says no decision is a decision, or the decision not to make a decision is a decision. I think that's a good one. And I think if people remember that, they can avoid the traditional happy years or, the hopium smoking that we've seen so often.
Yeah, I like that one. I think there was backed by data too. The study's probably a few years old now, but they said over 50% of B2B deals end in no decision. You don't actually lose to a competitor. You lose to the status quo more often than anything else. Mike, how about you? Favorite Sandler rule?
There's many, but I think that, one, as we're talking today, I was thinking about avoiding mutual mystification. I think a lot of what we're trying to do with our sales process with prospects, avoid mutual mystification. And I think sometimes what Coachum's trying to do is avoid that as well. So, we're really helping the rep really work on the right end of the problem and minimize that mystification and trying, and again, sometimes it's not even on purpose, but helping the manager really be more effective at what they do and really help them kind of, as we talked about, like grow their people as quickly as possible.
I love that, because I do think that's a core of what Sandler does, but also the Coachum app, is that most people aren't doing dumb things because they think they're dumb things to do. They've hit some sort of bottleneck or blind spot that they need an outside coach, like their sales manager, to show them how to do something different or where they're getting stuck, or the data as well. So the data can help do that. And then the coaching recommendations, a lot of times, sales managers just don't know. They were like, if I knew where a piece of content was that would fix the problem, I would certainly send it to my team, but they just don't know what they don't know. And so I think that mutual mystification on all sides is really what causes a lot of these problems. And then once we identify them, we can fix them. All right. I think that does it for this week. Again, thank you, Colum Lundt and Mike Myers from Coachum. And you can find more information through your Sandler trainer. Reach out to them or go to Sandler.com, click on find a training location, or reach out to the enterprise team if you have more than one location. And until next time, whatever you are, be a good one. That's what I always say. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Share this with somebody you think needs to hear it. A sales manager that is ready to grow their team and take them to the next level. Now is the time. The How to Succeed podcast is brought to you by Sandler, the worldwide leader in sales management and customer service training. More information at Sandler.com.